Victor Nation, how we feeling? Hi everyone, my name is Floof. I just woke up and I'm a sleepy little guy, but I'm a sleepy little guy that won a GT. Let's go ahead and talk about it and how maybe you can win a GT or a major or an open. I don't know your life. Hey, roll the intro. Alright, so with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this list. Alright, I want to start off by giving at least 4 points as to what is going on in this GT, how everything happened, and what went down. Okay, so first point, what is the list and what are the changes I made since the last video? Well, the list is as follows. I'm just going to do a quick little rundown of bam and bam. Alright, so characters, we have a Clamavist for 12-inch deep strike denial. We have a Reductus Saboteur for some area denial and free grenades. We have a Kellermorph, more area denial, nice little cheap shots. The Battle Shock did come in handy every now and then. We have a flawed Primus, the Primus with the enhancement from a Host of Ascension under a different name for reasons I feel like we can all kind of agree under. His whole thing is that when he drops down, he gives lethal to the unit that he is going to be shooting with, and he also naturally has full rerolls to the unit, right? Lastly, we have a Benefactus with Assassination Edict. Note that for purposes of fix, this does give full assassinate. However, we are playing GSC, that's kind of a pitfall trap. Next up, in terms of regular units, we have 6 squads of 20 Neophytes, 4 of which are anti-tank, 2 of which are anti-chaff. We have 6x5 of Flame Acolytes, 1 Taco Squad. The Taco Squad is the heavy mining tool Acolytes with auto pistols. They're there just to be Gretchen that generate me CP. We have 2x5 of Pure Strain Gene Stealers, and then we have 3 Mortar Ridge Runners. Each 3 different squads of them, not like 2x1 or 1x1 or anything like that. 3x1 of Achilles Ridge Runners with the mortars, and then the War Gear option Survey Auger to help take away cover. Some niche decisions in here. The anti-heavy Neophytes, those are with mining lasers and grenade launchers. The anti-chaff is with heavy stubbers and flamers. All of them, however, have seismic cannons and Webbers. Webbers are just funny. You could say everything should have flamers and then, you know, piece in the Webbers here and there. I really just like the Webbers because over that many activations, in some area you're going to spike 6s, which is just, it feels nice. The 6x5 Flaming Acolytes, we took it down from 5x5 and 1x10 to 6x5 in total. I did kind of miss having just one big squad that just goes boom, we kill. But overall, it allows it to be not any of them are like too dedicated or too resource intensive, which ended up being very nice. And then the Taco Squad we have, notably since the last video, I've taken out 5 Metamorphs, the Sanctus, and just kind of move some stuff around. Oh, the other 5 Acolytes. What we have put in instead is we've upgraded the Sanctus to a Kellermorph. We have brought in a Reductus Saboteur, and we brought in a 3rd Mortar Ridge Runner. What this allows us to do is in turn 1, we have a really nice game plan if we go first, to where we have 4 different sources of indirect that are going to be ignoring cover, and after the first activation, 3 sources are going to be at ignore cover plus 1 AP if they're all going into the same thing. This would be helpful into things like scouts, mandrakes, any kind of like chaff unit that's just kind of cheap that I want to start taking out early, right? Good in guard in terms of like taking away any like guys that are like attached to Lord Solar. If they've only got a 10-man, you can really kind of start to punish that. And it just opens up a world of possibilities. Now, if you want to be aggressive in your opponent's face, you might just have like 2 or 3 mortars, and then you have like that 4th one go ahead and help out whatever the pure strains are going to be going into, right? If they are able to get to something of value that they can essentially eat. If not, then oh well. With this, we also have some good area denial, not only in just the pure strains kind of being nice move blocks. I generally like to like deploy them pretty aggressively. That way I can support what I have essentially floating around my natural expanse, which is generally going to be a Reductus Saboteur and a Kellermorph. What these two do is it's great for area denial. I'll normally have the Reductus Saboteur in a way to where she's as close as possible to the point while still being behind a wall. In a couple terrain features and settings, I had the ability to essentially put her 9-inch bubble to be over the majority of the point, to where if they wanted to take it with anything real, they would be taking D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Then I'd also have the Kelemorph near her to where 12 inches right onto the point, they're taking the D3 plus 3 mortal wounds, and they're taking the 6 shots in the Kelemorph, and they're taking a battle shock. It is a kind of a big investment to have like over 100 points to be selling on this point, but they're both blown up. You try and run some neophytes onto the point to sticky it early turn 1, and then you just move up, and then these two idiots just kind of sit there and be like, I am going to be annoying, right? So overall, I really liked how that played out. And then you start with 2 neophyte squads on the board, 2 flame acolyte squads on the board, all 3 ridge runners, and then the Clamavis and the tacos as well. There are some matchups to where if they have like heavy indirect, you might want to put like a mortar or 2 in reserves. That could be against like sisters or anything like that, to where they can't as easily just one-shot your vehicles and now all your support is gone just from the word go. So that is something to consider. Be flexible with how you deploy, but generally I like to have like 40 neophytes, 10 acolytes, and then just all the other stuff I'd mentioned before, right? What I'm looking to do is sticky my home point, move out the neophytes onto the home point and my natural expanse to just be annoying there and start presenting my opponent with a lot of problems. I might not push them into the open. A lot of times I might go directly onto the natural expanse if I can afford there, and then the ones that would be going into the middle, I kind of like stage behind a nearby terrain feature. That way, if they try and put something on the point turn 1, I can just be like, here is a lot of bodies, right? The flame acolytes generally are going to the natural expanses, mine and my opponents, to essentially be like, hey, if you try and contest here or you try and put bodies on these points, I'm gonna have a bunch of hand flamers pop out, shoot you a bunch, and then maybe go for a longer charge, right? It is something to where it's just cheap, not really that committal, based on the points of the units and the fact that I'm probably gonna be having a good chance of getting them back if my opponent does fully kill them. It also allows me to punish them in terms of like shooting armies, to where if I go and put a bunch of neophytes on a point and they try and shoot them off and they only kill a couple, I can go up and then now I have 100 neophytes in Deep Strike, right? It's just something to think about, something to consider. There's a lot of options that we have here. Now, we've got that whole list covered out. Going into point number 2. Point number 2, how does this list interact with primary? Well, it tends to just dominate primary. Base as it is, you have over 300 OC in the list from the word go, and that's not counting stuff you're going to be getting from Cult Ambush. That's not counting stuff that it's going to be regenerating. This list is just going to be something that sits on points. You have stuff staged behind a wall to where if your opponent comes in and clears you off, you just go, okay, what do you have on the board? Okay, 6 Death Shroud and a character. All right, that's like 7. Cool, 5 more acolytes onto the point, right? Or maybe 20 neophytes, or oh, the first 5 acolytes you picked up in Overwatch, cool, now my 20 neophytes, or I'm gonna 3-inch deep strike onto the point. Or maybe I rapid ingress last turn 20 neophytes onto the other 2 points, and they're gonna walk up and just be annoying over here. It is something to where it's a real lose-lose for your opponent, and unless they also have their backboard screened out as well, it can be something to where you're going for theirs. There was often times to where if my opponent didn't have a 12-inch deep strike denial, I'm rapid ingressing some amount of neophytes near their home point on turn 2 to just walk up and start taking that away, and it can be really, really devastating. And that's basically it. It's just throw stuff onto points. We've seen this stuff with most swarm lists that have high OC. You saw it with like Nid Swarm. I'm sure Guard can do it as well, but generally this tends to be a more non-committal form, just because Cult to Ambush, there was a good amount of times to where sure they kill a squad, but you'll just get it back, and so you kind of feel unpunished for it. That being said, how I'm describing this does lead to sloppier play, right? To where if you're just like, oh, I'll get it back, oh, it'll be fine, sure, whatever. Well, then if you roll all 1s and 2s all games, then you're kind of messed up. But I will say, in terms of having 6 squads of neophytes and 6 squads of acolytes, you tend to just have enough stuff to where at least for the first 2 turns of primary, so turn 2 and turn 3, you're able to just give your opponent the 0s or 3s or just like a 5 or something like that, right? Because they'll still maybe have their own home point. And it allows you to make a very hard early lead. Now, going into point number 2, how does this game plan interact with secondaries? Well, it tends to really dominate secondaries. I've found that even if my opponent takes fixed, I can kind of punish what they go for. I can play a lot looser with neophytes if they don't take cull, but if they do take cull, then I'm just kind of like only getting sight lines, getting angles with them, and only really committing on like one full turn to where they'll probably kill like 2 squads. Sure, get your 10, and then after that hit them hard enough to where they aren't able to get that full 20, right? Assassinate is also a thing, but just generally it's not real, in my personal opinion, with 2 of them being lone ops, 1 of them having a reactive move, 2 of them being attached to 2 20-mans of neophytes. Generally, it's just, you're going to be fine. And the list also can deny things like engage, cleanse, all that type of stuff, to where you really take away their actions, or you can take away flanks to where they're not able to get all around the board to stop engage. It's pretty devastating. Also, with the amount of bodies you have 3 Ridge Runners in the back. Generally, I kind of screen like my back wall. With the scouts and the high movement of the Ridge Runners, you can essentially turn this into a, not Dawn of War, but the Hammer and Anvil deployment. You know what I'm talking about, right? To where you screen out that whole board, and then you have some acolytes maybe in the front as well. Sure, if they have a 3-inch deep strike, they'll probably get somewhere with something, but the Claimavis also is able to kind of deny your own home bubble, so they're not really getting back there. There's not going to be a whole lot of value that they're going to be finding in these spots. So things like scouts, things like mandrakes, things like Vespid, all that kind of stuff, that to where you have these armies that have a little action guy that goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down and tries to score all these points. You've got the bikes from Votan, all that type of stuff. They're really going to generally be denied your half of the table, which can be devastating in terms of like them trying to get certain secondaries done for free without having to commit real things, right? They only have to commit this 1 squad or 2nd squad. So be able to do that really well. If it isn't able to screen it, just with the amount of mortars and chip shots you have from all of like the Ridge Runners, or just spare auto guns and all that kind of stuff when you do drop, you are able to really sweep out their chaff infantry really well, and it just can be very debilitating for them. All the while you're scoring with acolytes. Maybe you got some pure strains that died turn 1 and you got them back as well. Well, cool, now they're gonna go deploy in my opponent's little bubble over here and get me locusts as well. You are able to outscore the secondaries of most armies. Even the kill secondaries, with you having the Primus squad and the Benefactus squad, you are generally able to have the damage to be like, I'm going to get something this turn. Into point number 3, we're going to go into the general like archetype and game plan of this list, and like overall the damage it kind of does and what it seeks to be doing. Okay, at the start of the list, I was realizing that what this list does is it plays a very board control list. You're playing blue, white, hard control in terms of magic, right? It is something to where you are able to really dictate where your opponent can and can't go. If they're going someplace that you don't want them to, you can punish them very hard for it. And it all just kind of cascades on things. You can 3-inch deep strike neophytes strung out if they don't have an overwatch threat. You can be very disrespectful with it. We've got some pictures right here to where I was playing against a Blood Angels opponent, and essentially he had pushed Dante and Lamartis into my home deployment zone, and I said, cool, these an unmanned 20-man neophyte squad is gonna keep you over here, and I am going to go kill Lamartis and Dante, and I'm gonna do it in a way to where now you cannot react to it. And that now, when they're dead, I just have this half of the board. You're not able to really commit to it or anything like that, and it can be very devastating. Hey guys, quick little editing floof real quick just to come in here. The picture that I'm actually showing right now actually is 1 round later than I had thought I was when at the time of recording. Just going over it right now, just want to give some quick things. The Primus squad was up here, but this is 1 turn after it had shot Lamarti's unit. It had moved up. Same thing you can kind of see down here as well, a little blue neophyte. That's another squad that had walked up. The 20-man neophyte squad that had blocked out the rhino is now being touched by that rhino because he decided to keep them there. You know, he just charged the rhino in. Sure, fine, fantastic. The kill team had gotten out and went and killed a 20-man that was put onto his point, and then the captain had walked up, failed the charge that I had talked about, and is now just sitting in the open. Although I'm pretty sure at the time of taking the photo, it is actually now dead. So, cool. That's just giving a quick little recap. Back to the video. Like, a lot of people have asked how my damage is, in terms of going into high toughness things like knights or anything like that. And honestly, unless it's a bunch of 2-up saves, not even in cover because that doesn't really matter, but like 2-ups with Armor of Contempt, I'm not really big stressing on it. I just have an amount of shot that eventually you're gonna start failing rolls, right? The hand flamers are 46 shots, full rerolls, AP 1, getting into combat. It's 12 attacks at 4-1-1, 5 attacks at 5-2-1, all with eventually +1 AP, so it's 4-2-1, 5-3-1. That just can really decimate a unit. Or if not decimate it and kill it outright, do some type of damage, right? To where then maybe 40 unmanned neophytes can shoot into it, and sure, they're not going to be the most reliable damage, but it's going to get something done, right? Between webbers, between mining lasers, between seismic cannons, between grenades, between flamers, between heavy stubbers, between auto guns, you just have so many guns pointing at people that if you're able to roll your dice on time, you're going to have the damage to really start to clear people out, and it's very, very disheartening for your opponent to have to deal with. Let's see, we talked about damage, we talked about the overall playstyle. This is just something to where if you can deal with early pressure very well by not being too greedy with your deep strikes and putting enough stuff on the board for deployment, you're able to play a style of list that wants to kneecap your opponent on round 2, really kind of take out the other knee as well, sweep the leg on round 3, and then sit on your opponent with so much OC that they can't do anything for the rest of the game. When I drop all 120 neophytes and everything is on the board, I don't just sit there and go, cool, I shot you, that's everything. I charge anything and everything I can. I have charged Angron because he didn't have the sustained hits up, and that was going to be my only fights this phase, and I go, cool, you got 18 attacks. You're probably going to roll once, but it doesn't matter. Even if you kill everything with all of your attacks, I will have at least 2 or 1, I forget what it, no, he's only 19 on the charge. I will have at least 2 guys that are going to be touching you. That means on your turn, you cannot do anything with Angron because you do not have fallback and charge, and you are stuck there. I've had it to where I charge tanks, I charge other fighting units, I've charged just like 4 or 5 boys that are sitting on a point, or some berserkers or something like that, and I go, cool, you're probably going to kill a majority of my guys right here because I'm just guardsman, but I'm guardsman with OC2 and you're OC1. And I only need a couple of them to live to take the point from you. And that, it's very brutal for your opponent to deal with. Now everything's touched, now everything's tagged, they have less activations, but it was a game plan to where they needed as many activations as they could to take out all of your bodies, but also now they have to go do actions and stuff like that, and it's just, oh my god, I can't handle all of these things. So it stress tests your opponent and puts it in a way of, you present a problem, you go, if you do not play this perfectly in terms of your activations and handle what I'm throwing at you, then you were going to lose. You're going to lose either dramatically on primary or dramatically on secondary. And if someone goes and they spreads out all along the board and does all this stuff, they're probably going to lose because you go, that's dead, cool, that's dead, now these are mine, you only have this segment, but all of this stuff is touched, and you don't have the ability to react to what I'm trying to do, because I might send something over here to kill it, but these guys are over here, they can't go kill this, so I genuinely don't even really care about these guys. I might 3-inch deep strike some neophytes up here to go stop these guys from dealing with you, but it's just, you're everywhere on the board. If your opponent has any kind of shooting that to where they need to activate to get stuff, and you're in a spot to where, oh, you only killed a couple of my guys, or maybe you whiffed your shots into some acolytes, or you really wanted this charge but you forgot and you shot chaff shots into it, going up. And it's very disgusting. Normally I try and remind my opponent of hey, just a heads up, if you shoot this, I can go up into deep strike. So I anytime I play against world eaters or orcs or blood angels, I'm hey, that one pistol you have, just pretend you don't have it, right? I don't try and play and win off of gotchas, but I will punish my opponent for misplaying and making mistakes, right? So that's all of the main 3 things. For point number 4, it's less of a point and more of just a rundown of the matchups. Let's go ahead and start off with, we got Boom right here for Grey Knights. This was just one to where I got first turn. I was able to touch a couple character Dread Knights he had with I touched one, and I touched a Strike Squad with my other Pure Strain squad. and I was able to keep essentially the character down. I killed like 3 or 4 of the strike squad and was able to just kind of start flooding the board. He moves and has his 3-inch deep strike to put 10 paladins on the center point to start taking away from me. And I go, cool, you can totally have that 1 point. That's fantastic. However, I'm going to go now and kill everything else. And with 3 different activations of the Ridge Runners to get +1 AP everywhere, sure, you're able to Void Armor, but he also wanted to save CP for Miss and Overwatch, and I'm stressing out the CP that he does want to do, and essentially I had him tabled by the end of 4. He had like a Strike Marine and a Carrier, not a Carrier, a Knight, you know what I'm talking about. And just the OC is very disgusting. Now, round 2, we went up against Blood Angels, which is what people think is one of my worst matchups. I kind of don't agree, because yes, you'll get in and kill stuff, but if I'm smart with how I set things up, you're going to be killing stuff I don't care about on areas of the board that I don't care if you're in. We had a point right here. I think I've shown this picture already in this video, but if I can just show it real quick as well. We had Dante that had come up behind a point, and the Kellamorph and Reductus and Ridge Runner had shot in, and actually I had gone pretty well. He didn't make a whole lot of his saves. And I had killed like 2 or 3 of the Sanguinary Guard. And then he comes in and he kills like the Kellamorph and the Ridge Runner with Dante's unit. The Reductus Saboteur is still there. And then like Lamarty's unit is just in the middle of nowhere because it went and charged 20 neophytes that I had moved off a point into the middle of nowhere and said, yeah, you took Cull. You'll kill these guys. Go for it. But now I have you in a position to where I have 2 sight lines from my home corner and the other corner to where I can just shoot in and destroy what I need to. And it was the same way for my round 5, which we'll get into, but basically we're able to take out the 2 things that are able to really effectively handle a neophyte squad, and then leave you with a bunch of stuff that sure will hurt the neos, but they're not going to kill them in 1 activation. And that's where you need to kill them, is in that 1 activation. Otherwise my army is going to smack the hell out of you. I will say I did get pretty lucky on the turn to where I had set the neophytes to block out like the Rhino that had the kill team in it with the Deathwatch Master and all that. He had set them to go clear a home point that I had flooded with neophytes, and then he had his sustained hits captain or whatever that needed to make like a 6-inch charge, and he whiffed it. That's rough. But yeah, game turned out pretty effectively for me. Yes, you kill a bunch of stuff, but it's stuff that I don't care about and I can just replace and then keep going, right? So in terms of melee matchups to where you think you might be at a disadvantage, you're not, because yes, they're going to kill things, but if you are smart, they can kill the stuff that you are making them kill. Otherwise, they're not finding as much value in their unit, but even the value they are finding is something that is replaceable, right? I hope that makes sense. Now, going into our turn 3, or our round 3 against Guard, I don't know why I keep going up here, but hey, if I keep putting stuff up here, you know why. Against Guard, overall, got the first turn, was able to move block the Rogel Dorn for like 3 turns and just keep that beast locked away, as well as kept everything relatively funneled. I had gotten Pure Strains into Lord Solar's unit turn 1 and brought him down to like 1 Catachan, the bodyguard, 1 other guy, and Lord Solar, which is really good. Just a large amount of mortars into it to just try and really take out the orders very early. And then he essentially had to trickle tanks onto the point, onto the midpoint very slowly. He's using his deep strikes to try and get into my backfield, but it's not really into anything valuable. He tried to angle shoot some a Clamovis and a couple acolytes at one point, but it just really was, I go, okay, my Ridge Runner's gonna go tag all of your Tempestus, and then I don't care anymore. And so effectively what it was I was able to hold my natural expanse pretty effectively, and while still forcing him to like commit things he didn't want to commit onto his home point, as well as taking the middle, and it really just kind of snowballed. It's closer, but it was fine. Round 4 was a very interesting matchup against Death Guard because he took Fixed, but not in a way that I thought he would take it. He took Fixed, Assassinate, Engage, which I didn't agree with at first, but I mean, he killed like 3 or 4 characters, I want to say. Here's the score right here. It wasn't bad, but it's just he also rolled really poorly for a lot of saves. There's a point to where I had a Primus unit activate into shooting some Death Shroud Terminators, and I had put like 7 saves on him with seismic cannons, and he failed 6 of them. And then for damage, it was like 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 1. Like I picked up 4 of the guys right there, or 5, I think it was. And then Binding Laser took out another Terminator, and then all the other guns just took out the character. And it was just like, well, fuck. Typhus is doing his little brain blast thing, but he failed every single time. Typhus killed 2 of his own Terminators and then wounded himself before I've just got around to being like, I guess I kill you now. Die. And then failed some key charges into me turn 1 to try and take away my natural expanse point, so it got stickied, and then I just kind of made a bubble around it. He shot the bubble to try and get onto the point, but he didn't have anything else to charge, so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go up. And it was just, he didn't have the right activations into me at the right time to really punish me for what I was doing, and it just got out of hand. So overall, a pretty solid win right there. And then we go into round 5, which was against an orc player on Green Tide. Really fun guy, played against him a lot. Genuinely one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the scene. And it just came down to, I'm thinking, oh god, this is going to be a terrible matchup for me. It's Swarm versus Swarm, but he's like tankier. A lot of my guns are running on 5s. It's going to be really rough. And he actually got first, and I was like, oh, this is the Doom scenario. But he walks out a bunch of guys. And then I walk out some neophytes to go shoot at some boys, and I brought down like a 20-man with like a pain boy and boss to like 6 guys, and I'm thinking that's good. And I get some shots over in the north corner to a 20-man. Or no, I had tried to get 5 pure strains to go charge an unled 20-man, but they had whiffed it, so they were kind of sitting out there surrounding a Clamovis, because I was really worried about the weird boy getting to me turn 1, so I kind of played the Clamovis pretty aggressively. Either way, not to get too much into it, the orcs come back, they regen a bunch of guys in the squad that had hurt really well. The 2 20-mans come out, they eat whatever the hell they want, right? And then my drop turn comes. And with my 3-inching Primus, I go ahead and kill the weird boy squad because it was screening out his back point, and I was able to get some shots into it. I killed a truck and a bunch of flash kits that were inside, bringing them down to 3 because they got flamed and then charged by acolytes. And then 2 5-mans flamed the unled 20-man of boys, killing that. After the Keller Morph actually very luckily shot the squad, they failed their battle shock test and weren't able to surge into the Clamovis that I had to fall back because they had touched him. And then kill the other 20-man, essentially in one turn, kill 60 boys, and then go, now try and kill me back. And it was overall, it was a very good turn. And that was one of the things that essentially allowed me to get back into it. I was able to deny primary on that turn, and we played very closely, but because of the impact of that turn, he wasn't really able to get back into it that well. I win the game by 11 points. Overall, super solid game, and that was it. It's something to where I feel like it really showed of, I will let you kill stuff, because you are going to do that, right? Whether I want you to or not, you are going to kill things. So how about I be smart with my activations and what I'm doing, and I allow you to kill things in a way to where I am going to be in an advantageous spot to hit you back. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Overall, I think this list does very well, and then we'll go ahead and use that to transition into the funny little 5th point, how this list is going to change. Boys, and girls, and everything in between, myself included, we know that changes are going to be hitting. Data Slate is honestly probably coming in sometime this week. I'm just rushing to get this video out before the change. What we have heard is Cult Ambush is changing. I don't know what it is going to be. I have heard rumors. What I personally would like is if it is something to where it's no longer a role. It's guaranteed. We've seen token systems. We've seen stuff towards talking about flat points. For ease of just everyone's understanding, it's probably going to be something to where like you get a set amount up to a point limit back based on your decision of when that stuff dies, which I think would work very well. So something like, I don't want to say like 1,000 points, that's way too much. 750 also feels like too much. 250 is too little. Maybe in like 1,000 point games you get like 250. Probably it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of like 500 points. When that stuff dies, you can get it back, which is totally fine. That works for Aberrants, that works for like Acolytes coming back at like 70, 75 points, maybe after the Data Slate. It's just going to be fine. You get Neophyte squads back. It's just something towards guaranteed, and it will express player skill. I think that's something that can actually really help this list in terms of what it wants to do, in terms of just guaranteeing I get the resources back that I need, right? If my opponent's taking Cull, well, maybe the 1 or 2 Neophyte squads that he kills, I don't actually regenerate. Maybe I leave those in the back. Maybe they just stay dead, right? But who knows? We will definitely see it as time goes on. Now, other changes. There's been rumors that like the 3-inch might be going away. Maybe it's getting replaced with like a 6-inch or something like that. I think that's kind of a neutral for us. Yes, it hurts us in terms of we can't just auto take any point that they're not covering the main puck of, but at the same point, we don't really have to worry about screening out that much as well either, right? To where our Ridge Runners can pretty effectively screen out 6, or maybe I just have like a 5-man Acolytes, or after Cult Ambush happens, I have like a 5-man Pure Strain go ahead and sit down in my backline to help screen out 6 as well. It's much more manageable and something that can be screened pretty well. So it does hurt us, but I think in like mirror matchups where we both are doing uppy downy bullshit, I think it's going to be a net neutral, so I'm looking forward to it. And then overall, everything else, I think GSC is going to be fine. I think it's going to be brought down and be balanced, but I don't think they're going to nerf us into the ground to the point to where we can't play the game. So I'm looking forward to everything that's coming up so far. I hope you enjoy it. And then also, hey, anyone else that wants to, oh boy, caught in a stretch. I have a Discord now. I felt like the community was getting big enough, and there wasn't really a solid concrete area for people to come find me and talk to me. Please don't blow up my DMs, just know that I'm a real person. I made a Discord called Hive City Havocs. It's under a team name of when I wanted to make my own team, but you know, I ended up joining a SOAR team. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and put the link right here if you want to type it out. Bam, bam. If I can fit it in the description, or like, I think we can put a little thing right here in the who cares? There's a way to where you can join the Discord. It's going to be mainly GSC focused, although you can talk anything competitive or anything like that. I'm generally going to have it pretty small for right now, like a general discussion, a GSC competitive discussion, and like a hobby channel, because I do like seeing cool models, and obviously I commission paint as well, so I think it's a good place for people, artists and all that kind of stuff, to always have like a backup hobby channel in whatever Discord they're in to just talk about fun stuff, right? So go ahead and join it if you want. And yeah, I think that's gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understand why I try and make these videos the way I do, and yeah, I'm looking forward to our little Christmas detachment. I'm looking forward to LVO next month. I think it's gonna be a great time. So you all have a lovely day. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye. Roll that outro. Wait, do we not? Oh, do we still not have an outro? Roll it.